Here we are, another year's gone by, a Skills Network conference, and I'm delighted to be here to be able to speak to you. Welcome to my den. This is been filmed in my post-COVID, I say den, it feels a bit like a prison sometimes, but I spend a lot of weeks and hours here. Before starting and talking about the importance of skills to the recovery of the region's economy, particularly for business, I wanted to pay tribute to the sector, all aspects of the sector, including, of course, our independent training providers, for the pivoting, the things that have happened to ensure that people have continued to learn in these difficult circumstances. I'm also clear that it's also exposed the challenge of some households where they don't have access to the internet, they don't have access to devices, and we as a society need to think about how we sort that. It's always been important that we have a skilled and flexible workforce to drive the economy, and it's even more important now as we contemplate the recovery for the region. It is important that we don't see economic growth just for its own sake, and very much like the Victorians, it's using the power of that growth to improve societal benefits. And for me, whilst it's pertinent we're talking about a pandemic, and the Victorians talked about some of the diseases that affected society then, for me, that pandemic is about deprivation, it's about poverty. So how do we ensure that the economic success benefits all, and that we aspire that poverty and deprivation are something we have eradicated? So what do we need to do? We have created a West Yorkshire Economic Recovery Board, and it is developing a strategy for the region, and will produce a series of offers to government as well as funding asks. And it's around three important phases. What bits of the economy are we rescuing? How do we recover from that? And how do we also reimagine? How do we think about the opportunities that this provides, rather than just getting back to what we had before? And very importantly, for the long term, how do we build in some resilience to these sorts of shocks? It's important that we focus on, as I said, three priorities: developing resilient and thriving businesses, boosted by innovation with high skills and entrepreneurialism, making sure that it's inclusive, that provides people with a decent standard of living, not just an adequate one, and above all, that we do promote the environmental sustainability in our parts of the region to national benefit. There's a lot of challenge out there. As we reimagine the economy, we need to repurpose people and the roles that they can fulfil. You might say, oh gosh, we've heard all sorts of recovery plans, and there are a plethora of them out there, thoughts, ideas, but all of them to date that I've seen describe what. But we need to set out how, and that's what we will do, and describe the success we aspire to. As I've said, we want to put forward to government a series of offers that will be compelling and therefore attractive, and hopefully we'll be able to fund the series of asks that we want from those. As I've said, there is a challenge about making sure that young people who've missed out on their education catch up, that people who perhaps have lost out on their jobs see this as an opportunity to revisit what they might do, hence the point about entrepreneurialism. People with ideas, why can't we foster those ideas? They've maybe thought for a long time, I'd like to have a go for myself, use this as an opportunity to have a go. And so, as I said, we need to be clear as a community of skills providers that we know what we've got to provide, hopefully convert those from one sort of skills base to another, hence the importance of the reboot program that we've been running. That means people who want to re-equip themselves, people who want to get digital skills that they've probably promised themselves but actually taking the time to get at it, but also make sure that they're flexible for the opportunities ahead. So for me, the importance of economic growth that we've been focused on around SME is important, but we need to also develop an economy that is innovation driven. We have many examples of the innovation that's become globally significant from Leeds City Region. You only have to think about the artificial hip. It wasn't invented in California, it was invented in Leeds City Region, of globally significance to an ageing population, and that's just an example. And hence the work we've been doing with MIT around what's called REAP, Regional Entrepreneurial Acceleration Programme, It's actually how do we create a much more entrepreneurial economy where people with ideas can test out whether they will work and then can be scaled up to become globally significant businesses, not just locally useful, globally significant. So for me, the importance, as I said, is about having a skilled and flexible workforce that's adaptable as we establish the rescue, build the recovery and reimagining, but also put in the resilience to the city region's economy. Often people say to me, that sounds very optimistic. No, I think it's realistic, but there are grounds for our optimism out of what has been a shocking crisis that we've all had to deal with, both personally as well as locally as well as nationally. But I do think there is grounds for realistic optimism and confidence, but there's absolutely no place for complacency. So thank you for inviting me to be party to your conference. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but hopefully if any of what I've said is of some value, then I might get invited next year, and hopefully see you all soon.
So I feel there's never been a more important time to invest in skills. We've been through a health shock nationally and globally, but we're also heading for an economic shock where businesses are closing and people will be made redundant. And if the economic forecasts are anything to go by, West Yorkshire will not be exempt from that. So we need to make sure that those people who are losing their jobs are quickly able to access the skills they need to switch careers and get those jobs they need to put food on the table for their families. I'm particularly worried about those people who are in that 26% of people in the region who have low skills or no skills qualifications. So we need to make sure that they have immediate access to the skills offers that they need. Now, we can't do that alone, neither can they. They need colleges to have the funding they need to put on those courses. They need government to give the money so that they actually can be funded to deliver that. And it needs employers as well to play their part. You know, how are we making sure that your workforce of now is resilient for whatever comes in the future, and training has to be part of that. But my main message to government is really you need to devolve those skills programmes to combined authority level, and then we can work with local authorities to deliver those closest to the people who need them. A one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. So our colleges have been fantastic. FE colleges have done a great job through this time, delivering courses online. But I know that come September, apprenticeship starts are going to be down. That's going to hit their budgets, and therefore I absolutely acknowledge that they also need funding from government to sustain that great offer throughout this time of economic uncertainty. So lots to do. All partners need to work together, but the people who need to benefit are those people who need those skills and need those jobs, and that should be a priority for all of us.
Yeah, so as I think about how we started the year, nobody would have predicted that coronavirus would have caused such a big transformation in the world. Overnight, pretty much, people's jobs were decimated, and at the same time, we learned how to work remotely, how to work in a very different way. As we come out of the coronavirus, as we get a vaccine, this both creates challenges and opportunities for us, right? And I think from a region perspective, we've really got to think about how this presents a massive opportunity. Whereas before, jobs had to be in a location like in London or in major capitals, now you can work from anywhere. It's perfectly acceptable to work from anywhere. So as a core skill, everybody needs to learn how to work from home or work from any remote location, and realize that any job that used to exist anywhere in the world can be done from anywhere, right? And that means that we need to build the skills for digital working, using video conferencing type technologies, but at the same time, solving the real problems that matter. Right? One of the things that became very clear in the virus, and whilst we've managed in this pandemic, critical jobs are really, really recognized and valued. So some of those care worker jobs, which we used to kind of undervalue, now become the key jobs that matter. And I think there's a phenomenal set of new jobs that will get created as a result of this pandemic. And it's up to us to create the entrepreneurial spirit to understand some of the issues that society faces, that people face around the world, and how we create the jobs and businesses that solve those issues. whether it's about providing care, whether it's about solving real medical issues, or simply providing the entertainment that addresses some of the mental issues that have been created as changes go forward. So I'm actually very optimistic that going forward, coronavirus is a levelling factor and will allow us to create jobs that we can't imagine today.